spinning, we have a rotational quadrupole. 4 poles always chasing each other and never being able to catch each other. Maybe, among other fundamental things in physics, the swastika is also a representation of a quadrupolar anti-gravity drive. This is a working machine, desktop device that would cost probably $2,000 to $3,000 to produce in this country. That has many other fantastic applications other than anti-gravity, that was built in a Russian institute. So let us repeat the whole physics of anti-gravity. We discover that one does not need element 115 to obtain anti-gravity, as we don't need element 115 to run our cars to make an internal combustion engine or to make an electric motor. Any metal conductor on this planet moved in a magnetic field generates electricity, or vice versa. If you run electricity through a magnetic conductor, through an electric loop in a magnetic field, you would make it to move. You would create an electric motor. It's an inseparable property of matter to behave in this way in a magnetic field, as is the property of matter to behave anti-gravitically if it is spun along a vertical axis. We don't need element 115 to go to the other stars and planets. Only the government needs this hoax, and the bankers, actually the bankers behind them, because they'll be selling us this super expensive fuel way into the future. Simple rotation is the secret of anti-gravity, and if we use some folk wisdom, the faster you spin it, the better. If you spin the hell out of it, it would lift off and fly away. This is kind of a folksy bottom lining of this 4-hour lecture on anti-gravity. If we go into the metaphysics a little bit, a helicopter propeller basically screws itself into the atmosphere of a planet and pulls the craft upward. An anti-gravity drive resembles an etheric screw, an etheric whirlwind that screws itself into the etheric matrix around the planet and allows the craft to go up. But unlike the atmosphere, the helicopter can fly as high as there's atmosphere. When the atmosphere stops, the helicopter cannot fly further because there would be nothing for the propeller to grab and to hold onto. There would be no atmosphere. But with anti-gravity, this etheric field around the planet obviously is a lot bigger, and wherever it finishes, then we have the next one of the moon or the sun beginning. So you don't have empty space of no etheric whirlwind influence, which allows for an anti-gravity craft to go from the Earth to the moon, from the Earth to the sun, between planets, between 2 stars, very easily. So basically, how is this etheric vortex created? We can think of an anti-gravity drive in analogy to the egg beater beating the eggs, swirling them around and beating them into a vortex. We can think of an anti-gravity drive as an ether beater, when either a brutal mass starts spinning around, or some fine energy field starts rotating around the craft. All these things work like the beating wings of an egg beater that beat on the ether and make it spin around. And this etheric vortex is actually the power that lifts the craft upward. Now, some experiments to prove that our theory is correct. Actually, I was thinking of doing one, but buying a doll for my daughter, for my baby daughter, I ended up buying twice more expensive present for myself. This is a, as it always happens, you end up with a toy train for yourself instead of. This is a styrofoam saucer sold at Toys R Us. Nobody can. I mean, there have been so many cases of the NSA arresting inventors the moment they create something that flies. The moment, this is a threshold point, the point of no return. Once you make something that flies and proves the theory, that's it, you disappear. You go black, they will buy you off, they will kill you off, whatever. As long as you don't do that, it is just tabloid, cranky stories. So I was thinking of very much of doing something like that, and then I see that actually the guys at Toys R Us have already made it. Let's analyze this saucer with the knowledge that we have. This is a piston engine here from a very small model plane, a model piston engine that spins a propeller in a vertical shaft. So this is a ducted fan, ducted because the propeller, the fan is in a duct. This is a ducted fan configuration of an air cushion vehicle because the air that is compressed downward kind of pushes the craft up. But there's a catch here. And the catch is the following. This craft cannot fly under the power of the gasoline engine alone. You can start the engine, you would leave it on the ground and it would never lift off. You have to pre-spin the body of the craft. The model is about this big. When you throw it in the air, you have to pre-spin it by hand with the engine running. To throw it by spinning it. And if you spin it clockwise, it wouldn't fly either. You have to spin it only counterclockwise, exactly as the experiments in anti-gravity that we talked earlier. So what happens is, let's repeat, it would not fly under the power of the engine alone. We can start the engine and leave it on the ground, it would never lift off. I bet after this tape all these models would disappear from Toys R Us. I can bet. It would not fly if it is pre-spun by hand in the clockwise direction. The only way for it to fly is if it's pre-spun in the anti-clockwise direction. And it would lift off about 180 meters before exhausting the gasoline, and then it would come down. Now, once we pre-spin it, it's kind of a jump start. After that, the engine itself rotates the styrofoam. It's a very light styrofoam body of a craft. By number one, there is this reaction of the propeller. The propeller rotates one way, the engine tries to rotate the other way because the engine is bolted to the styrofoam body. It rotates the body in the other way. Also, the two mounting planks or brackets, plastic brackets, for the engine mount that run from the walls of the ducted fan to the engine and back to the wall again. They are also shaped as a propeller, but in the opposite inclination to this one. So when the compressed air jet comes downward from the propeller and hits the brackets, it would work toward spinning the outer shell in the necessary direction. So basically, three things help the craft fly. The reaction of the engine spinning the body, number one. The additional force, spinning momentum that comes from the special shaping of the engine mounting brackets like a secondary propeller. And the third and most important, the kickstart, comes from the manual pre-spinning of the craft at takeoff. There are no helicopter blades along this styrofoam-made body of the craft. So there is no aerodynamic effect. There is a defect, but of a different kind. The defect in the theory. It is not flying upward because it's a helicopter propeller, that's obvious. The reason it is just on the verge of anti-gravity, basically a little bit, because it's a hybrid between the ducted fan, it creates some of the lift. The other lift is created by spinning the whole thing. What a better, how should I say, experimental verification of our mini theory that we created.